What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the 4 to 7 podcast YouTube channel. This is not really an episode of the pod per se. More so, this is just a quick video for us to run through our predictions for the 2025 MLB season. Right now, as we are speaking, it is opening day eve. By the time you are watching this, though, it will be opening day. So happy opening day, and let's get right into it. So we're just gonna kind of run through some predictions. We'll do Yankees win total, Met win total. We'll do the Cy Youngs, rookies of the year, MVPs, and we could do World Series matchups and who wins at the end. Not sure if there was anything else you wanted to include, or maybe if anyone has any bold predictions of any sort, we can throw those in there. But that's pretty much going to be it. So let's start out. With the Mets. How many games you got the Mets winning?
I think I'm going to settle on 92, Chris. As I said in our preview that got released yesterday, that I expect the offense to be able to carry its portion. I think what's going to make or break this Mets season is whether the starting pitching stays healthy and if they can handle the workloads, because we're going to have to see if Kodai Senga can go back to throwing 160, 180 innings after throwing 10 last year. Turned out to be the number.
Yeah,
we got to see if Sean Manaea, when he comes back healthy, is he the Sean Manaea we saw last year? Can David Peterson put it together for a second straight year? Clay Holmes, by all accounts, looks like he's going to be pretty good, but he has not started a game since 2018, and in that year he started 4, and that's it. So, and he's never thrown more than 70 innings in a season, and that was 4 years ago. So is he going to be able to handle the jump in innings that he hasn't had in a long time? Can he handle that?
At least double the amount of innings.
So you're going to have that. You're going to, you're counting on Blackburn, Canning, or McGill. Can they keep it up over a whole year? If Brandon Sproat comes up, can he do it? And, if any of them falter, that's going to put a little bit more on the Met bullpen. Are they going to be able to withstand that workload too? I know they have a better bit of depth this year, at least on paper. You never really know how a bullpen's going to shake out year to year, but this does look like a better equipped bullpen, at least at the start of this year, than last year. They fixed it as the year went along, but if things go sideways, are they prepared to work 4 or 5 innings a night? If it comes to that, I think the offense will be good enough to win a lot of games. If the pitching can hold up its end, maybe bump that up another win or two. But I would say on paper, and who knows, maybe David Stearns goes out and addresses, maybe he sees things develop, and maybe there's an important name out there that's going to be on this team at the end of the year that we don't know about yet. Like, who would have figured at this point last year that, we were going to add Jesse Winker or Ryan Stanek or Phil Maton? I didn't think that was going to be the plan. I thought we'd be selling. So, there's so much that we don't know yet. Guys that aren't going to be debuting here in the first couple of weeks, we'll see. And whether that wins the NL East, based on what we've seen over the past 3 or 4 years, I'd have to say no. I mean, I expect the Braves will be healthier than they were last year. I mean, I don't think that gets mentioned enough for a big reason why the Phillies were able to run away with the East, and why, that last doubleheader there on the final day of the season had to be played, because the Braves were most definitely affected by injuries. They probably will be healthier this year. They probably will be a better team. The Phillies are still there. They've been in the mix the last 3 years. I expect them to do the same. So I think you're going to see 92 wins for this Mets team and a wild card berth then. And whichever one that is, we'll see.
Yeah. I think those are all, very salient points. And I agree with pretty much everything you said. I'm going to Prices Right you, and I'm going to say 93 wins.
Okay.
And I would say, I would say probably the same. I think they'll finish second in the NL East and get a wild card spot. And the Braves will probably win the division. I do agree with that.
I also realized we were discussing this last episode. I never brought up Chris Sale when we were talking about the Braves pitching. I don't know, guy only won the pitching Triple Crown in the Cy Young last year. But yes, he's still there. But it's still so weird to me that Chris Sale bounced back and went right back to 2018 form last year after 5 years of being hurt. So.
Yeah, that was nuts. Remember when we were at spring training, I was telling you how I have that one fantasy team with the 2 keepers, and I was, I knew I was going to keep Teoscar Hernandez, and I was iffy about Chris Sale just because I was like, is he going to get hurt again? But update on that situation, I did stick with Chris Sale as a keeper, and I kept Teoscar too, and I actually traded Teoscar Hernandez for Josh Hader.
Well, is save hold your category in your league?
Saves is definitely a category. I'm actually gonna check and see if holds are one. But I was
a great invention for this, because it was like if you didn't have one of those 38 to 40 save plus guys, you were toast. And now it's, well, you could just get their 8th inning guy. You're going to be fine.
Yeah. So the pitching categories in this league are it's kind of stupid actually, but it's wins and also quality starts. They're 2 separate categories. I don't like that.
No, I've been in quite a few leagues with that.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about that, but it's wins, saves, strikeouts, ERA, WHIP, and quality starts are the pitching categories. After I drafted my team, I felt like I was pretty deep at outfield, which I guess I am, but that could also change quickly depending if a certain someone gets hurt, Mike Trout. Because I did take a flyer, not a flyer, but I took a chance on him as far as,
Hey, listen, I had a draft on Monday night and I took Byron Buxton. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's crazy.
I'm also the guy who thinks that the stripper actually likes me. So he'll be healthy.
You know what? She might like you. She might like you. So just a little quick update on that situation. Let's go on to the Yankees win total. I got them winning 89 games, and I'm going to say that they will win the AL East with 89.
I'll go 91 and say it wins the East. Like we talked about on the Yankee preview show, the only team in the East that feels like it got better was Boston, and even with that, there's still a lot of things they got to work out. And as we mentioned, they added Garrett Crochet, and that's noteworthy. But I still don't think there's really anybody in that rotation behind him that scares you. The Yankees can at least say we can roll out Fried, Rodon, Heel if he's healthy, Schmidt if he's healthy. You hope Will Warren takes a jump. You added Devin Williams to your bullpen. Even for the 2 earth-shattering things that have happened to the Yankees in the offseason, I still think this is a playoff team.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And I was like actually looking more into the Red Sox like pitching in general, and there really isn't anyone besides Garrett Crochet that I really think I trust. And yeah, like we discussed on the last episode, a lot of there's been a lot of kind of turnover in the league, and it's hard, or not in the league, but in the division. And aside from, Boston definitely got better, but they were like a last place team last year. So, they would, you would hope they get better. I mean, I don't hope they get better, but from a fan perspective of the Red Sox, you would hope they get better because they were so bad last year. But I don't think that Garrett Crochet is going to be enough pitching wise for them to win the division unless Tanner Houck is able to kind of put together a whole good season. Then we might be in trouble. But yeah, 89, and we'll win the AL East. Let's go on to the Cy Young Awards. We'll start with the American League Cy Young.
Ooh, I think this is a 3-horse race. I mean, Tarek Skubal, I think if you want to say best pitcher in all of Major League Baseball right now, he's on the very short list for that. I know Skeens is in there, and we'll get to that, but Skubal rightly has a claim in there. Cole Reagans really doesn't get talked about enough, even for someone who was the ace of a playoff team. Really good last year. And I'd put Logan Gilbert on that short list too.
Yeah, he's really good too.
I think the only thing that might hurt him is just visibility pitching with the Mariners. And
will he
I think we've gotten better. And obviously we've seen Cy Young winners in recent years where it's not the greatest record. But I do wonder if the Mariners' performance is what stops him.
Yeah, like if he doesn't get
I think he's right there.
Like if he doesn't get enough run support.
By the way, if Logan Gilbert were to do it, he grew up in Central Florida, and he went to Stetson University in DeLand. That would mark the 3rd Cy Young winner from Stetson, all in the past 10 years, actually.
Oh, wow. So
Jacob deGrom and Corey Kluber both went to Stetson. So for a mid-major to produce 3 Cy Young winners in a decade, really good.
Yeah, no, that's quite the resume builder. So are you going to go with your hometown hero, Logan Gilbert, or who do you got out of the 3?
I think I'm going to go Cole Reagans.
All right.
I think it'll be a very tight. I think this is going to be a 3-horse race.
Well, the one I have is none of those 3 horses. I am picking Tanner Bybee to win Cy Young.
Ooh.
And I will provide no further explanation.
I don't hate that. That's pretty good.
I'm just feeling it. I think he's the sleeper. He's for all intents and purposes, he's the Guardians' ace at this point. They always seem to be on point when it comes to producing pitching talent.
Yep.
He's got nasty stuff, and he's got another year of experience under his belt. I don't know. I just feel like it's Tanner Bybee's year. So
Tristan McKenzie, this was supposed to be you.
Yeah.
Tristan McKenzie, fantasy believer. That is for the record.
Yeah. It happens to the best of us. I've fallen into that trap before as well. It's an easy trap to fall into. What about the National League?
All right, so I've got a hot take. I don't think Skeens wins it, and I don't think it's on performance. I know everyone's kind of on edge, like, okay, he throws this hard, he's unbelievable, he looks durable, all that. When's the injury? Because it's just seems standard practice now with pitchers. I don't think he's going to have the injury that everyone fears, but I think he will have the injury that knocks him out long enough. It's very similar to Jacob deGrom in 2021. If you go back and look at his numbers throughout the year, yeah, that was the best pitcher in baseball. Like everybody would agree on that. He just missed too much time. They couldn't give it to him. I think Paul Skeens will have the kind of year where every start while he's healthy, it's, yeah, that's him. He's the best one.
Yeah.
But I think he'll miss enough time that the voters will go, we know it should be, but we can't. So I think Skeens is out for this year. I would have went with Zach Wheeler, but I also think he's had such a good run in Philly to this point. I feel like he should have gotten one to this point. Not that the ones that have had it in the past few years weren't deserving.
Yeah.
I just feel like his window to get it might have closed already. I'm going to go with Logan Webb.
Logan Webb, I like it.
Underrated pitcher in baseball over the past 2-3 years.
I love Logan Webb, and I actually like. Well, when we didn't actually start this, we didn't actually start doing Black Diamond until like about a month into the season, so we didn't really do predictions. But I actually placed a bet like before opening day that Logan Webb was going to win the Cy Young last year. Obviously, that didn't happen, but I definitely I've always been like a fan of his, so I actually love that pick. But
yeah, I don't think it would have been crazy last year either.
But for me, I'm gonna go with Skeens, which I think kind of is self-explanatory. This is probably, of all the predictions that we're doing, this is probably like my I guess coldest take, or like least controversial take, is that Skeens wins it because he is favored to win, and everyone kind of, the consensus pretty much is that like Skeens and Skubal are like the two best pitchers in baseball, and that Skeens, if he has a full healthy season, which is obviously a very big if, then he should come away with the Cy Young. And I know that the Pirates are not very I know the Pirates are not really known for good player management or development or really doing anything well, but one thing I'll give them credit for with Skeens is they were always pretty on point. As like when he came up last year, they were always pretty on point about like not running him into the ground. Like they would always seem to like give him an extra day off if he needed it. They had him on a pretty tight like pitch count, it seemed. He wouldn't really go above like a certain number of pitches, even in times where like during the summer, like where they were still kind of like in like the wild card hunt, and you think like, oh, like this team is gonna have like more urgency just because like they're so desperate to make the playoffs, so like everyone can like save their jobs. But there are even some games where I thought, oh, like if this team like was really like if it was really like playoffs or everyone's getting fired, like they might have kept Skeens in longer that game. So I do think that they actually do a pretty good job with like managing his usage. So I think that
I agreed with them taking him out of the no-hitter. I thought that was the right move.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't like I didn't love it at the time, but yeah, it makes sense. And that's exactly the type of thing that you kind of have to like have the balls to do in that situation, when you're trying to protect like a young, phenomenal pitcher from their own self. So I do think that they've actually handled Skeens pretty well in that regard. So, I'm going to cautiously say that he gets through this year unscathed. Or if he does get scathed, it won't be scathed enough to prevent him from winning the Cy Young. Let's
Also,
move on.
The Pirates have been gifted this golden opportunity here with him, potentially Jared Jones, Mitch Keller, and I know they've got other guys coming. So how did the Pirates thank Paul Skeens for doing this? They hired Daniel Vogelbach as a hitting assistant. If I were Paul Skeens, I'd walk into the front office and fight everybody. I mean, that's just me.
Yeah. It's very very, very unserious organization in all other
or you just go, stop making me one of your strongest soldiers.
Yeah. Yeah, for real.
Arm go burr.
Right? Like yeah. Like I wonder if that'll hurt him in a way, because it's like all their hitters are like, aside from Cruz and Reynolds, all their hitters are so shitty as it is. Like, what if pitching against like practicing against them, they're like even worse because they're getting coached up by Daniel Vogelbach, and then it actually like hurts his performance. That's something that might be a cause for concern.
A new record for strikeouts looking in a season by one team. Who would have seen it coming?
Who would have thought? O'Neal Cruz won't look stupid against lefties anymore because he just won't lift the bat off his shoulder.
Tamar Johnson, I am so sorry. This is not your fault.
Moving on to Rookie of the Year. We could start with the American League. I am going to say that the Yankees will be retaining the American League Rookie of the Year. And no, I am not going with Jason Dominguez. I am going with Will Warren. Second straight year, a Yankee pitcher wins the award.
I'm going to say that it is. I've got it as a 2-man race, and it's in the AL Central. I think my pick is Jackson Jobe. However, I do think if Jack Caglione gets up early enough, which it depends how well he hits the ground running in the minors. Does Kansas City want to screw around with his service time? Because we saw he was major league ready in college, and then he's looked like it in spring training as well. And they've already committed him to being a hitter. But if they bring him up, like what the Cubs did with Chris Bryant, and say he comes up in early May and he just smashes, I think he's my rookie of the year pick. But if they wait till, say, the All-Star break, I think it's Jackson Jobe. I think on record, I think it's going to be Jackson Jobe because in the cameo he got last year down the stretch, he looked great. He looked great in spring training this year. They're giving him a rotation spot. I think he's got a chance to really run with it there. So he's going to be my outright pick. But if Jack Caglione were to win it, would not shock me.
Yeah. No, I like that. I don't think either of those, neither of those guys winning it would really shock me either. I could definitely, even if Dominguez ended up winning it, that wouldn't shock me. I just think he might, I think he might have some struggles. The hitting should be there. I don't know how much they're going to hold. I don't know how much they're going to hold the defense against him, though.
No, I like, even if he was Adam Dunn in the field, I don't know if they would be like, well, we can't give it to him for this. I think if he's as exciting with the bat as he was when he came up 2 years ago, I think that might do it.
Yeah. Yeah, he would have to, he'd also have to, stand the test of staying healthy, of course, which over one.
I hate that it feels like it's been more true than ever over the past 10 years. It feels like injuries have just skyrocketed in a way that it didn't feel like before. But I feel like with any team, with any player, you're like, man, just let him get through. Because it just feels like it's always been true that nobody's immune, but it feels like the rate for players that are meaningful, that number's gone way up in the past decade. I don't know how true that is. It certainly feels that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's definitely true, and it's definitely something that the voters take into account when they're when they're deciding who wins these awards. Moving on to the National League, National League Rookie of the Year. I'm going to go with another not so controversial one. I think that Roki Sasaki will win the NL Rookie of the Year. I think, he's kind of like the, I guess, the more obvious choice. But I mean, out of all the rookies, out of pretty much all the rookies that are like on like kind of the radar for this, he hasn't played in any Major League Baseball yet, but as far as like going from, making the jump from like whatever level you were playing at to the major leagues, I would say that the competition he faced in Japan is probably, a lot higher than what a lot of these guys have played against in AAA. And yeah, I mean, I just, you saw how well Yamamoto did pitching with the Dodgers last year.
Same for Ohtani when he debuted.
Yeah. So I just don't really see any reason why Sasaki won't win it unless he gets hurt, of course.
I'm going to agree with you on that one. I do think if Sasaki were to miss enough time where it's okay, we know he was the best, but he also, like, if that were to happen where, all right, we can't give it to him, Dylan Cruz would be my next pick. And then I don't think there's really anyone behind him. I think Dylan Cruz is going to be the best rookie hitter in the NL this year by quite a bit.
Yeah, I could definitely see him. Yeah, I could definitely see him being the best rookie hitter. There aren't really like a whole lot of there aren't really like a whole lot of guys here that really that are really like inspiring, or someone that like, think like, oh, like this guy could be like a sleeper to win it. I mean, do you think like Do you think LA Acuna has like any outside chance at winning it, or do you think his game needs like a lot of refining?
I'm going to be truthful. If I knew that he was going to be a regular starter from day one, I think I'd still have him behind those two. But I would say, hey, if he blows up, he's got a shot because he had a good cameo last year. But, as we sit here on the eve of the season, both him and Brett Beatty made the roster. And at least it appears right out of the chute that Brett Beatty is going to be the starting second baseman until Jeff McNeil comes back. And then when that happens, who knows how Brett will hit for, I think McNeil's supposed to miss the first month. Brett could just keep hitting, and that'll force another issue. And it's, okay, well, how many at-bats is Acuna going to get? And I know he's played in the outfield before, but the Mets have kind of used him almost exclusively as an infielder. So I don't know. It just feels like the path to regular playing time is not a straight one right now, and not one I'm certain about. So maybe that changes. Like, again, at this point last year, we thought Mark Vientos was at Last Chance Saloon, and then that happened. So we'll see.
Yeah, things can change really quickly, but yeah, no, I agree with your logic there. It sounds like there's just kind of sounds like there's just like too many bodies in the on the bench and in the lineup that he probably won't get like he probably won't get like the proper amount of playing time that would really be necessary for him to be in consideration. But I do think that when he is I do think that when he's on the field, he will be good and he will contribute. And possibly, he might possibly force the issue where they're just like, all right, like this guy's good and he's ready, and we kind of just have to start him over Beatty and McNeil. So,
well, I do think it is telling, and this happened since the last time we recorded, but I don't know if you saw the quote from Lindor over the weekend when they asked him about Acuna, and he basically just, in so many words, said, if it's not Major League Baseball to him, he's bored. He's like, he needs the lights on to really play. He said it kind of felt like he was bored in the minor leagues last year. I'm not quoting Francisco word for word, but it was basically that. And when I read that, I remember thinking that. I think I said that on this show last year. It's one thing I'm saying that. It's another thing when the best player on your team, a playoff team, is saying that. He shouldn't be. I'm not saying Lindor was wrong to say that, but I'm saying that can't be a good thing when the best player on the team is like, yeah, he needs the lights on or he's not going to show up, because all those guys put the work in all of the time. And
and that's,
people bitch about effort, but I don't think these guys get to where they are if they're not busting their ass all the time. I know people have their qualms about that, but I do believe that you don't get to that level and play that well by accident. So if he's saying that about Acuna and he's with him every day, that felt jarring. And it makes me wonder how many other people that are with that team, both on the roster and in the front office, feel that way too.
It's like it's one thing for us to say it, but obviously like Lindor is knows him better than any of us do, and he basically essentially is saying the same thing. So there could be some truth to that, and I mean that could be a cause for concern because obviously it's one, I get it. Certain players in certain sports, they need to have the bright lights, and they kind of, they need it to be like showtime to really perform. But, I think I don't think that's really sustainable over the course of like a 162 game baseball season. Like, you're always going to be in the big leagues, but, there are going to be, not every game you play in is going to be like a Game 7 type atmosphere. So, or he could end up being, who knows, maybe he ends up being like one of those like really average players but who like really turns it on in the playoffs type of player.
It's like, you got to have that same effort when it's Wednesday afternoon in Colorado in July, and 20% of the stadium's full.
Yeah, 20% of the stadium's full, and it's like 115 degrees, and
it's
even hotter with the elevation. That was I thought the sunburn in Florida was bad, but nothing's worse than the sunburn I got the first time I went to Coors Field. I had that. I was sunburned for like weeks.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So that is NL Rookie of the Year. Moving on, MVP. So we'll start with the American League MVP. I know what you probably think I'm gonna say, but I'm not gonna say what you. I'm not gonna say what you think I'm gonna say. My AL MVP this year it's gonna be another Cleveland Guardian, Jose Ramirez.
I'm leaning that way too.
Okay, so
I think this is the year where people finally realize, okay, yeah, this is one of the best third basemen of the last, or maybe this century, at least to this point. It was one of those things that we didn't do as a show topic in the offseason, but I'm kind of was thinking about, I wonder which players last year potentially maybe stamped their Hall of Fame case. And Jose Ramirez got so unbelievably close because he was one stolen base away from a 40-40 season after a 30-30 season. And the only reason he didn't get that last stolen base was because their last game got rained out. It was game 162. They just were like, well, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They were playing the Astros, no less. And it was basically, well, winning or losing doesn't affect playoff positioning for either team. So we don't need to get this game in.
Stone, so
yeah, everybody would rather just go home and rest. But it's like, if they played that game, Ramirez probably plays. And if he gets on base, he's going for it. Like, he would have known.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he's going for it at that point. Especially considering that there was nothing really on the line as far as seeding
like if you get thrown out, so what?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I think if he gets it this year, whether he gets 30-30 or not, but if he gets back-to-back 30-30s and then an MVP season, like that stamps it right there. And he should be. He is the best, arguably the best third baseman of the 21st century. If you want to put him right up there with Beltran and Roland, I'm happy to have that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely can put him there, and I think he would have had a pretty strong case to win it last year if Judge didn't almost break his own home run record again. So, and I'm not saying Judge is going to have a bad year by any means. I still think Judge will be really good this year. He might, I think he'll probably hit, like, as long as he stays healthy, knock on wood, I think, he'll be in, high 30s, low 40s for home runs. But, it's just like so hard to, replicate like historic seasons like that back-to-back years. I mean, I guess if there's anyone who could do it, it is Judge, like, this day and age. But yeah, I'm just, trying not to like have any like repeats, I guess, from last year. So I'm going with Jose. I think it's his time. And I think after, kind of like in other leagues where after a while you get some voter fatigue, so they kind of start looking at other people to give the MVP. Like, for a while it was basically like the NBA MVP was pretty much like, all right, who's the best player that's not LeBron James? That was kind of what that was for a while. Or like in the NFL, it's like, all right, like Tom Brady has enough MVPs. Like, who's the next guy?
And this is how Trevor Bauer ends up winning a Cy Young Award.
Yep. Yep. Trevor Bauer. The Trevor Bauer, the DEI Young.
I hadn't thought of that. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
On a related note, could you imagine if a team had a left side of the infield of Jose Ramirez and Francisco Lindor? Could you imagine that?
That would be.
You'd never let either one of them go. I mean,
yeah, that would be a pretty. I mean, that would be a pretty dangerous team. That team would probably. I would say if such a team existed and if they had like a Cy Young, a potential Cy Young winning ace and Tanner Bybee on their team, I'd say that would be a team that could win the 2025 World Series.
Ooh.
But I guess, but unfortunately, that's not. Unfortunately for Cleveland, that is not the reality that we live in.
No, they didn't want to hit the luxury tax.
No, they never do. Yeah. Jerry, thanks you very much. All right. National League MVP. I'll let you take this one first.
I know we just mentioned voter fatigue, but like it's Ohtani till he's not, right? That's kind of how I look at it. Like it basically took Judge having the 62 home run season for him to not have 4 in a row across 2 leagues, with 3 of them being unanimous. So
yeah, true. Yeah, I think if there's one league that, I think if there's one league where they don't get fatigued as much, the voters, I think it probably is baseball. I think they kind of, for as much shit as like we give baseball writers, and like rightfully so, because a lot of times they are, a lot of times they are really lame about a lot of things. I do think that, they don't really let like voter fatigue and stuff like that get like in the way, except for like
Pujols has a bunch, Bonds has a bunch,
yeah,
Trout
except for that one time with Bauer winning the Cy Young in the Mickey Mouse 2020 season,
and Jimmy Rollins in 2007. But y'all aren't ready for that conversation.
Yeah, yeah. Perhaps that'll be perhaps we'll do a deep dive on that one day.
I think Kevin Lewis would like to join us for that one. I've talked to him about it.
I'm sure he would. I look forward to it. Yeah, I'll definitely have.
By the way, if Ohtani were not to win it, I don't think it would be a Met, because I think Soto and Lindor would cancel each other out. So if there is a non-Ohtani winner this year, I'm going to go Ellie De La Cruz.
Okay, I like that. I was going to say, so, I agree that it's Ohtani until it's not. But I could see a scenario where this year, since he is coming back to pitching, I could see a scenario where, since he hasn't thrown in so long, I could see a scenario where he either kind of struggles as a pitcher and he like loses points for that. I mean, the man's like superhuman, so this might not make any sense, but I could see a world where maybe he struggles a little bit as a pitcher just because he hasn't pitched in so long, or he might unfortunately, have another pitching related injury where he can only hit again. Can't rule that out. So
I could also see them being very careful with him, where it's like he never goes more than 5 or like more than 75 or 80 pitches. And it's just, it doesn't matter how well he's doing that night. We want him to pitch in October. And if this is the plan we have to take to make sure he gets there, then this is what we're going to do. So maybe just doesn't run up enough pitching numbers for it to really matter.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, like maybe he doesn't play like every single day, and maybe that takes away from like his MVP consideration. But maybe instead of the Dodgers winning like 108 games or however many games they're like projected to win at the moment, maybe they win like 98 games, and they just make sure that come playoff time everyone's fresh, everyone's healthy, and everyone's ready to go. So I'm gonna and that is an interesting point that you brought up about Soto and Lindor potentially canceling each other out, but I am gonna go with Juan Soto winning the MVP.
I wouldn't hate it.
I'm sure you wouldn't. I can see your Instagram story now.
There's just like 20. It looks like LeBron's after a playoff win. There's just 20 dots.
Yeah.
That's enough.
Yeah. And then last but certainly not least, we'll do the World Series, not the Fail Classic, but the Fall Classic 2025. Do you want to go first, or you want me to go first?
I'm going to let you go first, because I honestly don't have an AL pick. I really don't know.
Okay. Well,
so the more I hear you talk out the AL, I might come up with something.
All right. Well, I'm just going to warn you, you're not going to like what I'm about to say. So I think that the Atlanta Braves are going to win the World Series this year. And I think that they are going to beat the Detroit Tigers in 5 or 6 games. I'll say 6 games. Braves over Tigers in 6.
I'm going to go. I think I'm going to go Dodgers over Guardians in 5.
Okay.
I think, the Guardians have this ability to conjure up, pitching from thin air. And I know they traded Andres Jimenez, who, like I bag on him because, there's still people out there. They do exist, Chris, that still claim the Guardians won that trade. They're like the Japanese soldiers that were still fighting World War II in 1976. It's over. You lost. But
or like
he does
those,
help them. And they traded him for saving some money. But that's still a good lineup there. You have Jose Ramirez. They have a collection of sluggers. You've got Jhonkensy Noel. Rocchio is a legitimately good shortstop. I know not the greatest hitter, but very good with the glove. We know how good their pitching can be. You should have a full healthy year out of Gavin Williams, who I was really high on coming into last year. Injuries kind of derailed that, but I think if he comes back on, that's a pretty good 1-2 there. I know Clase's reputation took a hit in the playoffs last year because he did get touched. I think we still agree he's the best closer in the game, right? Even with 100%. All that,
definitely.
They still have Stephen Kwan. Stephen Kwan, probably one of the more underrated bats in the league. They brought Carlos Santana back. You know what you're going to get from him offensively, and I mean that as a good thing. You can pencil him in for the same line pretty much every year. I'm interested to see if Lane Thomas has a bounce back year because he's been a pretty good hitter with the Nationals. It did not go well last year after the trade. If he goes back to the Lane Thomas he was in Washington, that helps. They just traded for Nolan Jones, who was really good. Interestingly enough, was a Cleveland rookie at one point, and I think they just let him walk. Had a great year 2 years ago with the Rockies, kind of came back down to earth last year, but then Colorado just traded him because phase 3, profit.
Yep.
But I think that could really help them. They'll get David Fry back at some point this year. David Fry had a really good year last year, so I could see the Guardians having another one of those years where you look up and you're like, how the hell did this team get to the World Series?
Yeah. So. Yeah, I think it seems like when it comes to the playoffs for the Guardians that the Yankees are their kryptonite. If they could somehow avoid us, then they might have a chance to get there. Although they do have a very good team, and I would say they probably are just as good, if not better, than last year. And if anything, we're not as good as we were last year. So there's definitely a world where the Guardians could get their lick back. Those guys who think like the Guardians, who still think the Guardians won the Lindor trade, it kind of reminds me of like those people who go to like Civil War reenactments, like pretending the South won the war.
I want to reiterate. So in that trade was Ahmed Rosario, who's been traded 3 times since.
Yeah, I think just getting him off your team, you won right there.
Andres Jimenez, because one of the things that always gets pointed out is, the Mets just gave Lindor this insane contract. The Guardians gave Andres Jimenez 9 figures. That never gets brought up. And they traded him. Of the 2 minor leaguers, one of them's not in Cleveland's organization anymore, and the other one's never been, I don't even think has made Double-A ball. Again, where did we lose? I also do want to credit for the Guardians, by the way, because this could be a potential Rookie of the Year wild card. They do have last year's number 1 pick, and he is targeted to come up this year, Travis Bazzana. Now, you could argue about his skill set and whatnot, but I do think he would add a different dynamic to that lineup, just on the element of they wouldn't have seen him before. So at least with almost everyone else in that lineup, they have some idea of what to expect. With Travis Bazzana, they don't. And he was such an elite hitter in college, and there has been a lot of talk that it may not be in May, it may not be till September, but I do think he'll be up at some point this year, and I do think he'll have an impact.
I could see it. I do expect, I do expect the Guardians to be back in the playoffs. I think the Tigers, I think the Tigers will either, I'm going with the Tigers to win the American League, but I think it's one of those situations where they either build on last year and like they're even better because it's like they got the return that we discussed this last episode. They got the return that they got for Jack Flaherty, and then they brought him back. So I think having that 1-2 punch of Skubal and Flaherty. I mean, Gleyber Torres, not really, he's not much to write home about, but, he could, we saw in the playoffs for the Yankees last year, he was a pretty solid leadoff hitter. I don't know if he would necessarily be their leadoff hitter, but, that's another bat in the lineup that can potentially contribute as long as he can like stay out of the way in the fields. I think the Tigers are a team. I think the Tigers are a team that could be really dangerous. Either that, or like they'll fall completely flat on their face and like they'll look like they did the first like 4 months of last season and just be like terrible. I could see it going either way, but I'm gonna say that they get to the World Series. I think that the Yankees will lose probably in the ALCS to said Detroit Tigers. It could be the Gleyber Torres revenge tour. How far do you think the Mets will end up going? Do you think they get back to the NLCS and lose to the Dodgers again? Do you think they lose in the division series, or what's your outlook?
I think as long as this team stays healthy, like I said, I have them at that ceiling. I think they get to the NLCS again. And I do think my biggest concern with this team is just, do they have the pitching that can beat the Dodgers? Not necessarily beating the Dodgers pitching one-on-one, but can they beat that lineup? Because I think
can they keep them in check?
It felt like one of those things where it's like once the Dodgers got the lead, really in a game, you're like, okay, well, this is going to be pretty tough to come back from. And
yeah,
the biggest thing was just that so many innings that the Dodgers put together in that NLCS started because of walks. It won them a lot of games last year where they kind of lived on the corners, and an average to even good team might chase. We saw that against the Phillies, but we also saw it against the Brewers and the Dodgers. A really good team with discipline like that can beat you. It almost cost them against the Brewers. It definitely did against the Dodgers. If they can get that under control, I think that changes the conversation, but we've got a whole season to see if they fixed it.
Yeah, very, very true. So that's pretty much it as far as predictions go. Do you have any other like bold predictions for the season?
I do think, and I kind of teased this a little bit in the last episode, I think at least one player, and I know we were talking about Bryce Harper on the last episode, but I'm not saying directly him, but I do think a player, a name player, will have an IL stint because they got sick from drinking raw milk. I think that happens.
I could definitely see that. Or maybe what's the new thing with the Saratoga water and burying your face in it? I could definitely see there being like some sort of incident involving that.
Oh no, no. The funny thing would be because I've seen people prank on this in the meme format. They do this with a rookie prank, and it's some poor rookie puts the face down, except it's McDonald's Sprite, and then it looks like fireworks went off in their face,
and then he gets suspended for PED use.
Yeah, yeah. But I didn't even do nothing. Sorry, it checks out.
My bold prediction, and this one's a little out there, so bear with me, but and it probably won't happen. But my bold prediction is that the Cubs will have a slow start to the season, and Craig Counsell will be the first manager to get fired.
Okay, now that's bold.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I like sticking your neck out there like that. Like me, I was just getting jokes off. But that all right.
Yeah. I don't know. I could just see something, they've put a lot of money into their team. They got Kyle Tucker. Obviously, they didn't keep Bellinger, but they're in a situation where they've actually invested a decent amount. They haven't really gone all in, but they've invested enough money in their team that they should be good, and they should win the division, the NL. They should be able to win the NL Central pretty handedly, even with the -2 game handicap from losing in Japan. But I could see a scenario where that skid kind of continues, and they're that team that was like supposed to be good, that has a rocky start, and kind of makes a bold move like that. So yeah, I'm just throwing it out there, and yeah, we'll see.
I know I had my one hot take, which was kind of jokey, but kind of not. But I'll give a semi-serious one. I think the Jose Altuve left field experiment gets scrapped before the end of April.
I like that one. I think it will happen. I wouldn't be surprised.
Will be like, why were we doing this? We were overthinking this. He's still good at second base. Why are we doing this?
Yeah, like he's fine at second. Yeah, like I'm surprised they haven't scrapped it already, considering.
Yeah.
Just considering how bad it's been. It's like, all right, like the games count now. You had your fun, you had your chance. Just get back to doing what you know.
I got too drunk and I ordered Little Richard's Genie shoes on eBay. What was I doing? I saw those on the timeline today. That's why it popped in my head.
But also, I just realized like what your display name is. Like that's Juan Soto. I was reading it as like Junior Seau's name, like Seau.
I thought that might happen.
I was like, what's he talking about? And then, but
picture it with a Baltimore accent. That's what I'm trying to.
Oh, there you go. Juan Soto, yeah. Well done.
Maybe my favorite bit. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this here on the show, but I think my favorite thing that SVP does is whenever he has Tim Kurkjian on, and he always closes it with a bit around the Baltimore accent, and then Kurkjian's just laughing like an idiot for a good minute after. I've actually met him. I met him. This might have been like 15 years ago now in St. Lucie, just at spring camp. He was walking around. Very nice guy. Kurkjian's actually a gem of a person. But now I wish it had happened now so that I could ask him, Tim, who is the first baseman for the Mets? Pete Alonso.
Pete Alonso, yo. The Juan Soto, yo. You watch the comedian Stavros.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, you see his Ravens videos.
Do I?
Yeah, those are great. But that will pretty much that's pretty much it. So there's actually ended up being a full episode, because that's just what happens when we
it's Christmas Day. This is a good thing. We're excited.
Yeah, it's opening day, so yeah, happy opening day, happy baseball. Whoever your team is, best of luck, and may the odds be in your favor. And we will we'll talk to you in the next week or two. Peace.
See you.